Hope everybody's having a miserable Christmas Eve. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the artist formerly known as Pracownik Stal. And the reason I'm talking about Pracownik Stal so much is that to me, Pracownik Stal basically embodies the character of white nationalism. Pracownik Stal, aka Cole, aka Up North Outdoors, is the living, such as if you want to call it living, embodiment of white nationalism. And you can just see him puffing out his bloated chest at the idea. He's not in any way abashed or taken aback by stop it, cat. Your my use of him as a figurehead because it's very interesting because he basically has a negroid attitude towards a lot of this, and that is, oh, haters, man, haters, haters. I love my haters and stuff like that. It's not hating on Brack. I'm just using him as an example, and because he best encapsulates all the difficulties, all the vices, all the problems that your average white nationalist or Wignat has, and it's all in the frame of one man, and that's why he's taken on so much weight. Every globule or fat in his body represents the soul of one particular or every collective white nat out there in the United States. So it's very interesting to bring up. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Prax Stahl tonight. And again, it's not about hating on him. I don't hate on him. I actually respect and admire him, but we have to use him as the exemplification of the problem. And this is why the fora, is basically an old ghetto. They even were happy to have Kane back and said, thank God we have another warm body to populate the fora. It's a big deal. But let's talk about Prac rather, frack. It's egregious. The deadbolt LARPing, everything. The last time I saw Cole, it's like this deep voice white man. He's not at all like that. That's not who he is as a person. That's the most egregious part of Prac. Prac is not who he claims to be, and who of us is. But on the other hand, you know, it's very interesting. So we'll go right into the hunting part, with Prac. Prac's the mighty hunter. He's the great white hunter, the great whitetail hunter. Now, it's really not a big deal to be killing whitetails. The only people who think it's a big deal to kill whitetail deer are young Amish guys. Everybody else got over their whitetails. There are some people who are really stuck on the whitetails. It's like, really, you're going to go out and shoot whitetails? It's like skinning or shooting squirrels. And the only reason Prac doesn't shoot squirrels too, or rabbits and all that, is the deal is he's too lazy to skin them because the amount of meat is too negligible to make it worth his while, because he's not going to put much effort into it. So let's go on and let's talk about those bows and arrows he's using. And this is where we get into the nitty gritty of what I'm talking about, Prac being a problem. And that is, look at what he's shooting. He's using this bow gun. Basically, it has all the conveniences of the modern rifle, replete with scope and telescopic sights, this and that, and so forth and so on. And then it just shoots an arrow instead of a bullet. So the projectile, there's really nothing complicated about it. And I don't know how it is. It used to be that guys who were very infirm could have that type of weapon, because it's not fair, in a lot of ways. The compound bow or what have you, have at least have the strength to pull it back. With this gun, you just basically insert the arrow in the slot, and the gun does the rest for you. So there's no acumen or no strength or skill involved in this type of hunting. And this is the type of hunting, Prack basically sits in his wheelchair in a blind and waits for a deer to come by. And he probably puts out some corn for the deer to come by with, basically this is not hunting so much as slaughtering. It's really not. There's no thrill of the chase. There is no, excitement of the hunt. He has reduced hunting to the lowest possible type of it, of enjoyment. He's taken all the best aspects of the chase out of it, out of the hunt, out of the search for wild game. He has taken it all out of it and just left the bare fragments of an old man, just going into the brush. And again, he's been given every advantage. He has this bow gun that he doesn't have to pull back or do anything with. He just has to hold it in his hands and wait for a deer, and then depend on the telescopic sights to, line up. Hitler talks about this in his table talk. Believe it or not, he was making fun of his generals for hunting, and to a certain extent, this is a very salient point in many ways, because you talk about this hunting phenomena in general, and Hitler was, of course, he was just over it, basically. And in many ways, a lot of people don't get that. But the way people hunt nowadays, to me, we got too many whitetails. Go harvest them, except for the chronic wasting disease. Well, that might not be a good idea. I would imagine Prac is in the early stages of, Alzheimer's, which apparently you can get from eating too many whitetails with chronic wasting disease, which he has clearly done. So this is an enormous problem for him, and you can see his mind growing more decrepit over time. Where he can't engage, he can just say generalities or idle phrases. That is assuming he's not sentient AI of some kind. But this is where the whole problem is. Again, he's not the great white hunter. He's not actively chasing after any big game. I've been reading all these extracts from Elmer Keith's book, Hell, I Was There. That's the name of his autobiography, Hell, I Was There. And it's all these stories about hunting big game, hunting small game, and having to go to the game. You have to and pick all these different rifles, shooting antelope. He was shooting uh, long distance, killing most animals on North America with a handgun at long range, with a revolver, with an average, 6.5-inch barreled revolver at long range. And he was doing all this, in the early 1900s. And the point of the matter is that was real hunting. You go back to Colonel Charles Askins, to Elmer Keith. These guys were real big game hunters. They were the real great white hunters. And then, in exchange, you have guys like Pratt pretending to be game hunters, and they're not really game hunters. They're sitting in their blinds with their heated seats and their heaters and their bow guns that they don't have to operate, and pretending to take advantage of an extra season, by the way, so he can kill his max number of diseased whitetails. So he can, sometimes he's worried that the Alzheimer's is not taking effect quick enough, where he might have to actually do something for himself and not be totally dependent on his wife. And you can just feel that he enjoys being the way he is, every ponderous step he takes in his videos, that he's enjoying being a burden on society in general. And you see this, like I said, he gets to sit out for 20 minutes out in the woods. Not even in the woods. He's no more than 10 yards from his truck. And he has to sit out there in a blind, in a heated blind, and wait for a deer to pass. And one never does, of course. But they're always waiting and waiting, and it never happens. It never comes. And this is the end result of the Pracownik style experience. This is all he has left, is pretending to be the great white hunter, going after these white tails who are, overpopulated. They're everywhere. They're basically ground rats. They're cloven hoofed rats. And it's so easy to kill them. I've probably killed, without exaggeration, probably 20 white tails just before I was 20. Not even exaggerating, not even intending to go hunt them, that often, just accidentally. And I've raised them too. So, I've raised them from fawns. So it's like, to me, they don't have the same charm or interest as game as most things. To me, they're just like goats or sheep or some other semi-domesticated animal. So the fact that Prax spends you know, s- takes so much, sets so much store in killing whitetails is really indicative of his overall character, in my opinion. And then we go to, his other experience being in the woods. I see some turkeys on the roadside. We're really in the woods. We're really deep in the woods, practically being nest muck. That's practically George Washington Sears crossing northern Michigan by himself, in the, and keeping a journal, enjoying the woodlands, or Stuart Edward White, writing in his hunter journal or whatever. But no, he's not. He's Prack. He's a Polish guy who really doesn't belong in this country as far as that goes. Talk about the Polish being the Mexicans of Europe, literally, and that's why today the white nationalist of today is the immigrant of yesterday, and that's the way it always works. Whatever prior immigrant wave always becomes hostile to the next immigrant wave because they're a genuine threat to their existence, and you can understand that. But that being said, you see the case of Prack, who wants to pretend like he's an authentic American with that whole experience behind him of, what do they call, the heritage American, when he's not. He's fairly new to the country, and he's fairly new to living, this life of hunting and so forth. And he probably doesn't even like venison. I would go insofar as to say, especially since it's given him Alzheimer's, he probably does not even like venison. You probably couldn't force feed venison to Macrobius, much less Prack. So this is a very interesting dichotomy. You see Prack with his fake bow gun, going out there to hunt whitetails. And you don't see him actively actually hunting. You just see him sitting there. It's This is why hunting is dying out in this country, because it's not because people don't want to hunt or don't have the desire to hunt, because hunting is a boring pastime. It's no longer exciting. It's no longer interesting. It no longer requires athleticism or courage or intelligence or skill or woodcraft or anything like that. You can just, get your wheelchair lift out of your van and wheel yourself to the blind as practice, and then go and shoot a deer out of your blind, and then hope you have to wait 20 minutes or an hour for somebody to get over there and field dress it for you, because you've eaten yourself into a massive stroke that renders you disabled and unable to go after the deer. So, in this situation, and again, when we go back to the reason we're bringing this up is because Prack is like everyone. All these years we've been sitting around here talking about all these things, and what's the outcome? The outcome is everybody gets sicker and more, worn out and more dependent on Zog. You don't see anybody improving their lives, their health, their well-being, their resources, their finances. Some people are genuinely under the gun, like Pastor Lindstedt, and getting along better than Pratt. Pastor Lindstedt's doing way better health-wise than Pratt, as far as that goes. So maybe Zog should persecute Pratt a little harder. He'll feel better. Anyway, this has been another attack on Prack. And, the reason I attack Prack is because he is the exemplification of the white nationalist spirit. And as such, we have to use him as the virtual scapegoat for the fora, and I would recommend that the fora treat him as a scapegoat as well, by driving him into the wilderness indefinitely, and also sending me some tithe to my account, which I put up the link to that the other day, and do that immediately, if not sooner. Now,